Hi everyone, it is October the 9th, hard to believe, and it is the next virtual tasting of Chardonnay Charms. Tonight we're going to take a little detour over to Burgundy, where my father-in-law trained, and he's a graduate of the University of Burgundy at Dijon. So for those of you who are familiar with Burgundy wines, you'll know that white wine from Burgundy tends to be Chardonnay, oak Chardonnay, and red wine from Burgundy tends to be Pinot Noir. So those are the two wines that we're going to be featuring tonight. So first up, we'll start obviously with the Chardonnay, and tonight this is our 2010 barrel fermented Chardonnay. This wine is available at the LCBO, and it retails for $13.95. Now, it is barrel fermented and barrel aged for about 9 months in French oak. And you know, there's been this trend across many years now, where big, heavy, oaky Chardonnays have kind of fallen out of favor, even though Chardonnay is still the #1 variety of wine consumed in the world. And I think a part of that has to do with the big, bold, and very heavily oaked Chardonnays that were coming out of Australia and to a certain extent California. And for a while, that's what a lot of people were really enjoying. But after a while, it kind of gets to taste a little bit ubiquitous, meaning that they're all starting to taste the same. And so a more judiciously oaked Chardonnay has really started to come back into its own. And this, I think, is a very good example of that. So I'm going to start by pouring a little bit in, of course. Love that sound. And you'll notice from the color that it is a lovely golden hue, but it's not yellow. And this is a 2010 Chardonnay, so it shouldn't start to look really dark golden yellow at this point. You can tell already that it does have some oak aging on it just from this little bit of a straw yellow that you see. If it was unoaked, it would be far more paler. So let's take a little swirl and a little smell. Now, the classic nose of Chardonnay actually has this wonderful ripe apple, kind of like the filling that's in an apple pie. And when you have a judiciously oaked Chardonnay, you should still smell that, even though you also get the sense of the smoke and the vanilla and all of those other things that come with oak aging. And this is a really nice example of that, because you do get both. You can tell it's oaked. You really do have that wonderful warm spice and smokiness that you would get on any oaked wine. But you also get that little bit of apple. Now, true to form with most wines that come from our neck of the woods here in Niagara, oh my, the acidity, and my mouth is still watering. Because at harvest time, right now in fact, the temperature change, the diurnal temperature change between the day and the night tends to be quite broad, more than 10 degrees Celsius. And this is absolutely essential in order for the wines to be made from this region to retain their natural acidity, and also to keep the fruit from tasting that kind of stewed, jammy kind of flavor. And this is what makes them wonderful food wines. It's this acidity and fresh fruit flavor profile. And this is a really nice example of that. The wine has gone through what we call a partial malolactic fermentation. So some of that a little bit harsher malic acid has been fermented into lactic acid, which is the same acid that we find in milk. And that's why sometimes wines like this can actually taste a little bit kind of like a little bit of soured milk, or that smell from a cat after they've had enjoyed a little bowl of milk and they lick their paws. Kind of smells a little bit like that. Yes, I have cats. A little bit of information about this. Now, 2010, as many of you know, was really an exceptional vintage here in Niagara. This wine was picked on September 21st. So while we actually had a little bit of an early start to the harvest in 2010, the Chardonnay actually has benefited from some hang time, which allows for all those flavoring matters that are in the grape to really mature. We call that organoleptic maturation. Don't ask me to spell that. The bricks at harvest were 24.5, which means that 24.5% of the weight of the fruit was actually sugar, naturally occurring sugar. And that's what gets fermented into alcohol. As a result, the alcohol level of this wine is 13%. So it's enough to give it some weight and some body, but not enough for it to feel hot or really alcohol-y. Now, we had only made just over 1,600 cases of this wine. So even though this is a relatively inexpensive wine, kind of wine that you could have on a regular basis, it is not, it's still beautifully made, and you can still enjoy on a regular basis at home. So for $13.95, you have a barrel fermented, barrel aged Chardonnay that has a little bit of aging potential, if you happen to like aged Chardonnays. Though quite frankly, I would grab this and enjoy it now. There's no reason why you couldn't. So that is our first wine for tonight, is a Chardonnay barrel fermented from the 2010 vintage. So now we're going to move on to Pinot Noir, the red grape of Burgundy. And I have to tell you that Pinot Noir is probably my all-time favorite grape variety. I would be able to enjoy it anytime, any place, with food, no food, really doesn't matter to me. If it is in this particular style. So very much an old world style Pinot Noir. And Niagara in particular, certainly a lot of Ontario, is really getting to be known internationally as a place where Chardonnay and Pinot Noir both grow extremely well. And that's a wonderful thing. And it's because that a lot of our soils and some of our climate characteristics are very similar to what you would find in Burgundy. So consequently, it's a great place here in Niagara to grow Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So this Pinot Noir, this is our 2007 Old Vines Pinot Noir. And so ask the question, what does that mean, old vines? And depending on the region that you're in the world, it can mean different things. So here in Niagara, we're a much younger wine industry than, say, obviously France or Italy or even South Africa for that matter. So old vines to us means anything older than about 20 years. And Pinot Noir was one of the very first grape varieties that my father-in-law planted when he came here in the 60s. These vines that this fruit was taken from really date back to the mid 80s, kind of that time frame. So clearly this is older than 20 years. Now, Pinot Noir. Why do I love it so? Well, for those of you who have seen Sideways, the main characters, the two main characters, do go on and on and on about their love of Pinot Noir. for a whole variety of reasons, from how difficult it is to grow and all of that. And that's all true. However, the main reason I love Pinot Noir is just the way it smells and the way it tastes. To me, it's just plain delicious. And that, at the end of the day, is really all that matters. So if you like it, and you think it's delicious, you enjoy it. Plain and simple. But to me, a really good Pinot Noir should be one that you could sip while you're making dinner, but also one that has the structure and the weight that can stand up to many different styles of dishes. So for example, a classic food pairing with Pinot Noir is lamb, rack of lamb, particularly charred, like off an open pit fire or a barbecue. This Pinot Noir will do that beautifully. But at the same time, I think it's delicious just to sip on its own. So, the nose of Pinot Noir. Now, when I close my eyes and I think about what I smell, it kind of reminds me of Mother Nature. So that whole, close your eyes, picture yourself walking through a forest after the rain. So you smell the earth, you smell mushrooms, you smell moss, you smell trees. And to me, that's the essence of Pinot Noir. It is Mother Earth. It's also one of these wines that has lots of layers and nuances that can reveal itself over time. So, as the air is exposed to the wine then begins to change and release different nuances of flavors. So you will also get some of those bright red fruits as well. So some strawberry and maybe a little strawberry jam, but not so much in your face that that's all you taste. There still is that wonderful little hint of spice, some mushrooms, and again, that Mother Nature. And I find on the mid palate, the fruit really comes out more. Again, acidity. So another wonderful food wine as well. Now, you may have noticed that I have two very different shaped stems here. And again, from our friends from Schatzwiesel, for those of you who have been watching some of our other virtual tastings on video, you'll know that we use exclusively Schatzwiesel glasses in the winery, and that's what we have here at home. I absolutely love Schatzwiesel. I love the feel of the glass in your hand. I love the roll on the rim. It's fine, so that really it's just there to be a delivery system for the wine, but not so fine that you feel like it's going to break in your mouth. It's just perfectly weighted, perfectly balanced. So this particular glass is primarily for Chardonnay, and you'll notice that the difference in diameter between the bowl and the mouth allows for some aeration. So the surface area here is quite wide, but still the mouth here is smaller, so that all those aromatics that you would get from an oak Chardonnay remain in the glass, so that you put them on your nose. Pinot Noir has a very specific shape, and in many respects is a bigger version of the Chardonnay glass. So wide bowl, narrow mouth. So trying to aerate to a certain extent, but keep the aromatics in, because Pinot Noir is first and foremost an exquisitely aromatic wine. So you don't want the air to smell the Pinot Noir, you want your nose to smell the Pinot Noir. Hence the difference in size. And of course it's a little bigger because it's a red wine, so it needs to have a little bit more aeration to soften some of the tannins. So, two Schatzwiesel stems. Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, from Burgundy originally. They're the classic reference or benchmark to these wines. But here in Niagara, Niagara, Canada, we do Chardonnay and Pinot Noir very, very well. They have become signature grape varieties, and these are two classic examples, both under $20. Not huge production, under 3,000 cases for both of them, and made with love and care, and that's definitely the case with all of our wines. Some of you who have come down to visit us at Chateau des Charmes in Niagara-on-the-Lake and had the opportunity to take a walk around some of our vineyards, you'll know that they are pristine. My father-in-law is absolutely meticulous when it comes to taking care of his vineyards. And of course, sustainability is always front and foremost in all of our minds with everything we do. And that takes me to a quick update on the harvest for 2012. And today being October the 9th, believe it or not, we're almost finished. This year's harvest started about 3 weeks earlier than normal. Consequently, we're finishing about 3 weeks earlier than normal. The team last night worked, they're still going, so we're closing in on 36 hours now straight, trying to pull in as much of the big reds as they possibly could, as well as the late hanging Rieslings, which they often come in around the same time, which is interesting. So white wine and a red wine, big red wine, come in around the same time, within about a week of each other. We do believe in hang time, absolutely. We think that it's essential to get that organoleptic maturation that we talked about at the beginning. That can only happen when the grapes are allowed to hang on the vine and allow the vine to continue to nurture and to allow the grapes to take in as much of Mother Nature as it possibly can. Fortunately, we have not had a lot of rain this harvest season, which is very good when the grapes are this plump and mature. And we've had some nice sunshiny days. It hasn't been warm, and that's okay. That's okay. All we need is sunlight, not the heat. And that's what allows us to have these beautifully fresh, aromatic wines with wonderful aging potential and wonderful ability to pair with so many different kinds of foods. And so within the next couple of days, we will have pulled in all of our table wine fruit. The big reds that are coming in now, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot, all over 24 bricks, some going as high as 25 bricks. So the early indications are that 2012 is shaping up to be a stellar vintage. Now, I'm knocking wood because at the heart of it, we're farmers, and without all the fruit being in the tank and fermentation started, we never like to count our chickens before they're hatched. So the weather reports look good for the next few days, and so we are very hopeful that this vintage is going to finish very nicely. Harvest will finish very nicely, and that we will have another wonderful vintage to talk about, just like 2010 was. So that's it for this evening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next month.